Just by way of acknowledgement, my name is Kieron. This is Alexis. K and A and K, we're here together. AK like 47. Blah. And we're here to talk about mate selection.
Mate selection.
By way of introduction, we're a couple. Of course, we've dated other people prior to being together. And tonight we just want to talk about, because again, you go through different people at different stages of life, their maturity, your maturity, or immaturity, whatever the case is. And so now that you're in a more mature state of life, what we're trying to discuss today, and also for ourselves and help others understand what is healthy mate selection.
Right.
Is that right?
Healthy mate selection.
Okay. I guess we can start off by talking about identify what unhealthy mate selection would be. I don't know. Have you had any unhealthy mates that you selected?
I have a lot.
Okay.
Of individuals that I chose to be in a relationship with, and it was definitely extremely abundantly unhealthy.
Okay. I like the fact that you took ownership of the word chose, because the truth of the matter is, regardless of how many people you dealt with or whatever the case is, they could all be different, but the reality is at some point we made a choice.
We made a choice
to deal with these individuals. Yeah. I guess I would have to say, if I'm speaking from my own experiences, you know, there's some things that I chose at 18 that I wouldn't choose at 20. There's some things I probably chose at 20 I definitely wouldn't choose in my 40s. So I think sometimes where you are in your maturation, in your understanding, maybe even in your own desires, you know, lead or lend you to choose certain things. But after hindsight, you be like, what the heck was I thinking? Have you ever been in a situation where you chose something and then you ask yourself, what the heck was I thinking?
Boosh! Like yeah. Does that explain like where I was?
Yeah,
okay.
Okay. And I will say this, during our selection process, I remember us, someone introducing us, I remember us communicating. I can tell you this, and I'll say, well, some of the things that this woman asked me when we first started dating, wow, you know, I mean, really, the questions were so out there that I had to question myself, like, what am I even getting myself into? She asked me questions like, you know, are you abusive? I'm like, who the heck asked somebody that? Asked me a question like, you know, are you dating anybody? Okay, is there anybody that thinks that that's dating you or think that they're dating? I mean, crazy, but you know, hindsight, I do understand the rationale. I guess part of that, your directing questions like also came from maybe questions you had not asked in your previous selection process. Is that fair?
Well, some of the questions I had not asked, but then some of them I did, and also too, in being honest, you know, coming out of an unhealthy, you know, should I say it?
Good.
I don't know. Coming out of an unhealthy marriage and thinking that you had on paper this person fit the protocol and fit all of that, and from that experience it allowed me to kind of redefine some things, and although I thought I had made the selection, you know, and did what they told me that I was supposed to be doing, and as far as where I was, I thought I had asked the right questions, and you know, only to find out that, you know what, from that experience, I didn't know anything about narcissism or somebody being narcissistic or suffering from a narcissistic personality disorder. And so I didn't know to ask that question or to look for those particular things as far as mate selection is concerned. Okay. So I had a lot of triggers, if you would.
Triggers. Everything I said triggered something else. I was scared to speak at some point, but we can joke about it now. But the reality is, male or female, if you come out of a relationship, and let's just use for lack of a better term, you were burnt or you were stung in a certain area, that's going to be a trigger area for you when you see those behaviors or that tendency coming about. And I was scared, and you know, and the truth of the matter is, you deal with issues that may not even have anything to do with you directly, but it may just be that whatever that person's dealing with. You know, if you deal with somebody and they jacked up your money, the next person, you know, they're probably not going to get real close to that money because that's a trigger for you.
That was a trigger.
One of the triggers.
Yeah.
Girl, you had a lot of triggers.
I did have a lot. You said to me, what are triggers?
I know what the heck they are now. I know what triggers are.
I mean, one of my triggers was because in my previous marriage, that being with someone who is not responsible and does not handle money well, or tries to come off like they handle money well, and then for you to discover that they don't handle money well, it was a real a part of my traumatic experience for me. I mean, it wasn't the only traumatic experience.
I was traumatized from whatever he did. I had to answer questions that had nothing to do with me. Okay, I'm sorry.
So and it just was not. It was just not good. It wasn't good. So that money area for me, it's real sensitive. It was sensitive, and it's still sensitive. I still kind of.
Yes, it is.
Over obsessed with it, and I'm kind of like, I want to be in control of that.
Okay.
Is that true?
But I'm just going to ask the next question.
Right.
Let's talk about triggers, though, not necessarily from a personal place, but as we're dealing with the concept of mate selection. Mm-hmm. In your experience, or basically in your opinion, how do we help people identify what an individual's triggers may be? Mm-hmm. And if a person has a trigger, is that a healthy thing for you? Mm-hmm. Or, because it could be an unhealthy, it may be your trigger, but it may be causing the other person some unhealthy discomforts and things like that. So when a person's thinking about, listen, I want to date him or I want to date her, how do we help them identify triggers, and how do they know which triggers they actually can deal with and which they probably should run from? Or?
Well, that's on a case by case scenario, but I think the obvious thing is, if you do have triggers, to be honest about those triggers, and to be able to communicate about those triggers, and from that flip side, to ask someone, do they have triggers, and if they don't know what triggers are, then you explain that to them. Have you ever been hurt in a relationship, and so when you see this, it triggers something in you? And so I was very honest about my triggers, and I put every time a trigger came up, I put it on the table.
Yes,
because one of the things I was not going to do was go into something and the individual not know where I was, because technically it would not have been fair to him. And we're making this choice to come together, and so I need for you to know where I am. And I think a lot of times we have these triggers, we may not know what to label it, and so what we do, we end up having displacement of emotion, and so then we just like rah to the individual, and then the person's just kind of like, okay, well, what's going on? I didn't even do anything, but that person could have said something slightly that reminded them of something else. And so the person who has the triggers has to be mindful of that and be able to monitor that in a healthy way, and be able to put that on the table and say, well, you know what, you said this, it reminded me of that. And sometimes it's about slowing down and really having open communication. And so I would have to say, you know what, you be honest about your triggers if you are really moving into that serious relationship, courting, dating stage, or ask that person, do you have triggers? And as far as the what's going to set somebody off and that kind of thing like that, that's something that you have to talk about along the way, because that's what we did. It wasn't like everything was put on the table all at one time, but when things did come up, they were addressed.
They were addressed. I will say this from a male standpoint, and this is what we had to deal with. At the time when we came together, I can't say I really had a lot of triggers, because to be truthfully honest, I didn't know what a trigger was. I'm being honest with you. I'm like, really? Okay, but she did. And I think what was good, and this is brothers, we have to step up to this. A lot of times, I don't care if a woman was in a relationship last month, last year, 10 years ago, there could be a lot of dormant things still lying within her that you may not have been the one that initially did it, but something you say or do really can trigger and bring her back to that place. Yeah. And for me, I knew I was interested in her. I knew I desired to be with her, learn more about her, and hopefully be able to spend our life together. And so I can say one thing, I had, because I identified that she was still broken in certain areas. And I understood that I had to be patient enough to allow her to and help her to heal from what happened on yesterday, right? And then at the same token, allow her to build trust in where we are today. And I can tell you that right there was uncomfortable. There were some painful moments. There were some hurtful moments. There were some moments I just wanted to throw up my hands. And I remember one day, I don't know what we were disagreeing about, and you know, she got triggered, and I remember picking up the phone, and I remember just being real cool. So listen, you know what? This is really not who we are. This is not what we're about, and we will not conduct ourselves like this. So I understand how you're feeling right now, but you know, I'm not trying to do anything else. Trying to be, and I remember having that conversation with her, and this is after she said she didn't want to do this no more. Again.
Probably like the 10th time.
About that, but I mean, but the reality is, you as a man, you have to have the ability to see past what's in front of you. I think sometimes we get so caught up in a woman's physical beauty and attributes. We get caught up in, you know, maybe what she has and all, you know, her titles and all this different stuff. But you have to be able to look at her and really see inside of her. And I knew that this was a great woman there. I also knew that there was a lot of layers of different things that were built up. And I really, you know, I mean, again, now, you can't do this, and I don't advise you going through this with somebody, you know, let's be real, we're grown. If you're just trying to hit it, then you probably not care. But I mean, if you're really trying to build a meaningful, healthy relationship with a woman, you're really going to have to learn to exercise patience, because I think now as I go back hindsight, because here's the deal, there's some things about you that just who you are can trigger some stuff. And I've learned hindsight now that I actually did have triggers. They may have been a lot deeper down than hers were, but you know, she'd say something to me, and it'll take you back to a place and a time. You like, if somebody popping like, where this fool come from here? But it's something to trigger. But I think relationships are for grown folks, and when I'm saying grown, I don't mean by age. There is a certain level of maturation one really has to have when you start considering selecting a mate, and it's more than just what they make and what they look like.
And what church you go to.
Oh, yeah, ooh.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, or the position in church.
Right, and because he wore a suit.
Nice suits though. I wore suits.
Yeah.
You know, like my suits?
Yes, I did. You look very nice in your suits.
Oh, thank you very much. But so from that point, it's true. Let me ask you a question, because I think hindsight though, I mean, and we've discussed this, is tell you how life goes. Who she was in her younger age and who I was at a younger age, we would never be here today. You know, I have said to her, I said, you know what, I really wish hindsight that I could have met her at an earlier stage, because now we're together in our 40s, and you know, life starts to shorten when you start. I mean, I really wish that we could have been together in our 20s and 30s and really had more time to develop and build and culturize our life by the time we get into our 40s. But the truth of the matter is, we talk about, I was not to be played with, and she would try to. So we would have had a real problem. You know, that we would be the last two people selected to do anything, make anything, because we would not have made it, and that's just really.
And then too, the maturation wasn't there.